And just remember that, any of y'all out there who have these rare breed FRTs, you didn't send them in, you all can rest easy. This is
Yeah, that's a question we got.
Yeah, we get a lot of questions about this, about the rare breed FRTs, and what to do with them.
We are the Armed Attorneys. Today we're talking about forced reset triggers. These are devices that help assist a shooter shoot a little bit faster. Not machine guns. We're going to be talking about that. But there are some kind of wonky statements from the ATF. We see a guy getting arrested. Is this going to impact maybe an FRT you have purchased? But before we begin, show your support for the Second Amendment by hitting that like button. And if you're not already, join us over on armedattorneys.com. We got a newsletter there. We use it periodically, send out important updates. Check us out there. And another resource for you is our website, walkertaylorlaw.com, full service criminal defense firm here in the greater Houston area. If you need anything, just give us a shout. Now, this case, what brought this up is, man allegedly arrested for possessing FRT. There's a little bit more to it, but by way of a little bit of background to give some people some peace, we have Rare Breed. They invented this device. Can you explain, how does this thing work, essentially?
Well, and so these force reset triggers, they've been an issue for a couple of decades now. The first ones that were invented, the ATF, anytime something new is invented, it's always submitted to the ATF technology department because, being that it's mechanical, it involves firearms, you want to make sure that you're not breaking any rule. And so the original FRTs were submitted, and the ATF said, nope. That's a machine gun. That's a machine gun. That's a machine gun. And finally, the fine folks at Rare Breed Triggers came up with a mechanism whereby they said, that's a machine gun. And they said, hold on, it's not a machine gun. The mechanism works in that it just simply resets the trigger quicker. Each bullet still requires one pull of the trigger in order to fire the shot. Therefore, this is not a machine gun. And ultimately, the government agreed.
Yeah, and, I'm not an armor, but think of it this way. It's kind of like an internal bump stock. It's utilizing the energy from the discharge to push the trigger forward so that it can be quickly depressed again. So that's kind of how I like to think about it. And think about the ruling we got from the Supreme Court. They said these things, the ATF exceeded its authority to regulate bump stocks because they just tried to ham-fist a bunch of language about what, was a machine gun. And they had to do that ham-fist maneuver because clearly this did not meet the statutory definition of a machine gun. And so that's kind of the same argument they had with regard to FRTs.
Right. And keep in mind that's one of the unfortunate things that the ATF, along with many other federal agencies, do is they've been given so much power that they take a very straightforward, a black and white definition that has been written by Congress, in this case written by Congress almost 100 years ago, but written by Congress, and then they try to manipulate it to say, oh, this is included in that, and this is included in that, and this is included in that, which is not. That's the thing. It doesn't matter how the trigger gets reset. It doesn't matter how fast the trigger gets reset. The definition of machine gun is more than one bullet with one pull of the trigger, and that has never occurred in any of these, with any of these items. FRTs, bump stocks, nothing.
Yeah, and I'll say, this is my kind of a little bit of cause for concern for FRT style devices, not Rare Breed. But when you start having these combination of parts, then it starts looking much more like the congressional definition of a machine gun. And so, there's a little bit of cause for concern there. But Rare Breed didn't take it laying down. They challenged the ATF and ultimately entered into a settlement agreement. Essentially, the ATF, the federal government, relented, saying, you know what, we are not going to enforce this prohibition on machine guns to FRT devices. And we're going to read just a little bit of that. So this was paragraph 11 in the order. They said, the United States agrees not to enforce 18 U.S.C. 922.0, that's our machine gun provision, and the requirements on the National Firearms Act, Gun Control Act of 1968, as amended by the Hughes Amendment to the 1986 Firearm Owners Protection Act, or similar statute or agency interpretation of 26 U.S.C. Section 5845B, that's our NFA. under which the FRT is contended to be a machine gun or otherwise unlawful against any person or organization for possession or transferring FRTs under the following two conditions. The first one, the FRTs have a mode of operation described in the district court opinions in National Association of Gun Rights v. Garland as follows. The FRT is forcibly reset to its forward reset state after each round is fired. The FRT is locked mechanically in the reset state, preventing the trigger from moving until the firearm is safe to fire. The hammer must be released from the sear surface for every round fired. 4. The trigger in the FRT equipped firearm must be reset after every round is fired. And 5. Preventing the reset will cause the weapon to malfunction. And this is the second condition. The FRTs are not designed for use in and used in handguns as defined above. Now, this is a settlement between Rare Breed and the federal government. And so that's kind of one of the big things that folks need to be on the lookout for. And I'll add one more caveat to that. We're really talking about Rare Breed FRTs. The second thing is we're only talking about federal enforcement of machine gun bans, because states have gone a step further. Think the state of Florida. They still have bump stocks banned. States can still impose their own restrictions. Again, they're infringements to the Second Amendment. They need to be challenged. But, until that issue is raised, potentially still unlawful, not a good idea. Now, the ATF followed up from this settlement agreement.
Right. And just remember that, any of y'all out there who have these rare breed FRTs, you didn't send them in, you all can rest easy. This is
that's a question we got.
Yeah, we get a lot of questions about this, about the rare breed FRTs, and what to do with them. And right now, keep them. They're yours. Use them. They're perfectly legal. The ATF the government has expressly said that they will not enforce federal law against the rare breed FRTs.
Yeah, and to back up just a little bit, if you go on the ATF's website, they have an update, because again, as part of when they started litigating this originally, they went and said, turn in your FRTs or destroy them and prove that you destroyed them to us. They've updated that. They're giving rare breed FRTs back to their rightful owners that they seized them from. But
yes, I believe the time, though, has passed that you can ask for them back. So hopefully, if you did have your FRT taken, you're paying attention between the months of May and September.
Yeah.
And we're able to get yours back.
And this is, it's kind of implied in the settlement agreement, but the ATF does have, and I think that's what is worth noting, and we've kind of alluded to it, there's kind of a big caveat to all this.
Right. And so the ATF came out on their website and they said, look, we know a lot of attention's being paid to this settlement, but they needed to add this language here to their website, just as a piece of advice for folks who are out there. The ATF amended their website to say, the settlement agreement only covers eligible FRTs, machine gun conversion devices such as switches, drop-in auto sears, lightning links, or trigger control groups travel reducers are not covered.
Yeah. So they were talking about rare. That's all you need to know. They're talking about rare breed FRTs. Now, why is this getting attention recently? Oh, well, we had a guy in DC. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So his first mistake being a gun guy in DC or in Maryland, two places you don't want to be a gun guy. So he went to a gun range, I believe in Maryland.
Yeah.
And he went to a gun range and he rented a rifle. And he actually took the time at the gun range to remove the trigger mechanism of the rented rifle, insert his own homemade trigger mechanism, which I suppose was very similar to a rare breed, but it was not a rare breed. It was homemade, not a rare breed trigger, so not one of the ones that we've been discussing earlier. Homemade force reset trigger, put it in, and I'm sure that he probably caused quite a stir at the gun range whenever his gun started going brrr, brrr.
So, it ultimately resulted in,
him being called.
Them bringing this to the attention to the authorities.
Yeah,
them executing a search warrant on his house.
Yeah, somebody picked up the phone and like, hey, there's a dude here in the gun range that sounds like he's got a fully automatic weapon. And of course, they instead of going out into the woods where nobody would have known, had been quiet. And then I believe he allegedly said that the reason he did it was because somehow his homemade force reset trigger wouldn't fit in his gun that he owned.
Sure.
So he had to go out and find one to rent.
Yeah.
None of this is a good idea.
No, none of this is a good idea. And so ultimately, I mean, and this is why we're bringing it up, because, they're force reset trigger, it's like one of these things that go back and forth. Illegal, legal. All right. Illegal, temporary restraining order lifted, legal. Settlement, legal. Now, oh, guy gets arrested, illegal. Nope. This is distinguishable, and this is what folks need to know. Because this is not a rare breed forced reset trigger, it's a homemade 3D printed, probably doesn't meet the terms of the settlement. Again, the ATF gave us that clarification. Hey, we're talking about these covered FRTs, and that means something really specific. That's why he's in hot water.
Yeah, because they didn't say all FRTs. And believe me, I fully endorse and support the God-given right of every American to make their own homemade firearm.
And machine gun.
And that is something that has been honored from time immemorial. One of our fundamental rights that we have been endowed with by our Creator. However, whenever you're making something so the legality of which is in such in such a perilous state, don't bring attention to yourself by going to a gun range and doing this.
Yeah, as the criminal defense attorney in my heart is saying, why did you do that? But it's one of those deals. And the other thing, I don't know that this has been mentioned anywhere. Let's assume it was, a covered device, right? Still keep in mind, folks, there are some states that criminalize bump stocks, think FRTs, think state of California, for example, still criminalizes FRTs separate and apart from the federal law. Now, the feds can enter a settlement with rare breed. The state of California, while they're infringing on Second Amendment rights and it hasn't been litigated yet, it's a separate issue that has to be sorted out. Think Florida with bump stocks still needs to be sorted out. So, just be very careful because this is a perilous area.
So imagine you would have gotten the phone call. Hello, ring, ring, ring. Richard Hayes, attorney with the law firm of Walker & Taylor. I've just made my own 3D printed homemade FRT, and I really, really want to take it to the gun range to try it out and impress my friends and total strangers. Should I do that?
Yeah, live stream yourself on Facebook and go to the range. This is
Yes.
do the exact opposite of all of that stuff. But, hopefully that adds some clarification to the topic. We hope you enjoyed this discussion. If you did, consider subscribing, hitting that like button, and help us fight the anti-2A algorithm by sharing this video. And don't forget to question in the comment section down below. And until next time, we're the Armed Attorneys.